My name is Hannah, and I'm telling you this from a gray plastic chair in a visitor room that smells like bleach and stale coffee. They call me the miner's wife online now. The comments say things like, she had to know. No way she was innocent. I'd do the same thing for $10 million. People think they know you from a headline, from a 30-second news clip where you're shuffled past cameras in handcuffs, hair a mess, eyes swollen from crying. But nobody ever knows the whole story. So, let me tell you mine. Let me tell you how a humming garage, some blinking lights, and a man I loved turned into search warrants, mugshots, and a fortune that came with a body count. 1. The man with the dream. When I met Ethan, he was sweating through a too-tight dress shirt, trying to fix the sound system at our church. He'd taken apart the little black box, wires everywhere, tongue pressed to the corner of his mouth in concentration. The pastor was hovering behind him, panicking about the morning service. "Try plugging it in," I said, leaning against the wall. He looked up, annoyed, then saw the unplugged cable dangling near my hand. For a second, he frowned. Then he laughed, the kind of laugh that fills the room and makes other people join in even when they don't know what's funny. "You just saved me from public execution," he said. "I'm Ethan." "Hannah," I replied. He plugged it in. It worked, of course. The pastor patted his back, called him our resident genius, and hurried off. Ethan looked at me and shrugged. Sometimes it's the obvious stuff that ruins everything. If I'd known how prophetic that line would be later, I might have walked away right there. But back then, he was just this funny, scrappy guy who fixed things and smiled like he could see a future only he believed in. He was a line cook at the time, working nights at a crappy diner that smelled like grease and broken dreams. By day, he took whatever odd tech jobs he could get, fixing printers, installing routers, rescuing computers. People had drenched in coffee. He would come over to my tiny apartment, hands smelling like onions and burnt bacon, and talk about the next big thing. "I'm telling you, Han," he would say, pacing my living room like it was a stage. "The world's changing. Money is changing. Power is changing. It's all going digital and most people are asleep." I'd sit there on my sagging thrift store couch, ankles crossed, watching the way his eyes lit up. "I don't need much," I'd tell him. "Just enough to pay the bills and maybe take a vacation once a year." He'd grin. "That's why we're perfect. You keep us grounded. I launch us into orbit." I believed him. I believed in him. 2. We're going to be millionaires. We got married in a cheap community hall with folding chairs and a plastic arch someone had spray painted white. The DJ was a friend of a friend who played the wrong first dance song, but we laughed and danced anyway. We moved into a little fixer-upper home on the edge of town. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, a big maple tree out front that dropped leaves like confetti in the fall, and a garage. That garage was the first thing Ethan fell in love with. "Look at that space," he said, hands on his hips, eyes bright. "You know what I see?" "Junk," I replied, staring at the broken lawnmower and boxes of old paint the previous owners had left behind. He shook his head. "I see a lab. I see a workshop." He didn't say, "I see our future crime scene," but that's what it turned into. At first, it was innocent, cute even. It started with one computer, then another, Then some metal shelves from Home Depot and a box of fans. Mining rigs, he told me proudly, as if I should already know what that meant. They solve complex math problems to verify transactions, and in return, we get rewarded with crypto. I thought crypto was like fake internet money, I said. Everything's internet money now, he replied. This is our chance to get in early. It's like having a tiny digital gold mine in our garage. He kissed my forehead. Trust me, babe. We're going to be millionaires. It sounded ridiculous, adorable, but ridiculous. We both had normal jobs. I worked as a receptionist in a dental office, answering phones and soothing anxious patients. Our paychecks were small but steady. Our savings account looked like a desert. Dry, cracked, barely alive. Student loans, medical debt from when Ethan got appendicitis with no insurance, credit cards from the wedding. When the rig started humming, I told myself, what's the worst that could happen? Our electric bill goes up a bit. Spoiler, that was not the worst thing that could happen. 3. The humming in the walls. If you've never heard mining rigs running, you don't understand what noise means. It's not loud like a jackhammer. It's not sudden or sharp. It's constant. A droning, metallic roar. Fans spinning, cards whirring, a low buzzing that crawls into your skull. At first, it was just background. A gentle hum behind the clink of dishes, behind Netflix, behind the kids' cartoons. Yes, the kids. By then, we had two. Our son, Noah, with his father's eyes and my habit of chewing his lip when he was nervous. And our daughter, Lily, the wild one, who ran barefoot in the yard and drew on the walls with crayons even when she was old enough to know better. They thought the garage was magic. Daddy's machines are making invisible money, Noah would say, wide-eyed. I'd laugh and ruffle his hair. Something like that, sweetheart. Ethan kept adding more. I reinvested a little, he'd say when a new stack of boxes appeared. Babe, look at these GPUs. These things are monsters. We're scaling. Our electric bill doubled. Then it tripled. I mentioned it once, standing in the kitchen with the envelope in my hand. $487, Ethan. For 1 month. This is insane. He wiped sweat from his forehead. He was always sweating now and chuckled. That's the cost of doing business. The rigs are paying for themselves and then some. Then why does our bank account still look like a ghost town? I snapped. He stared at me for a second too long. Because I'm reinvesting. Do you want $500 now or $500,000 later? He had a way of making me feel small and silly without ever raising his voice. Just that mix of confidence and numbers I didn't understand. I sighed. I don't want to drown, Ethan. He crossed the room, took my face in his hands, and kissed me. We won't drown, I promise. I'm building us a boat. What he didn't tell me was that the boat had holes in it and other people's names carved into the side. 4. The money that didn't make sense. The first deposit came on a Tuesday. I was at work, staring at the clinic's outdated wallpaper and listening to the drill whine in the next room, when my phone buzzed with a notification. Deposit $7,450 from EMININGSOLUT. IONS LLC. I frowned at the screen. We didn't have an LLC. At least, I didn't think we did. That night, I asked him. He was in the garage, eyes reflecting the blue-white glow of the monitor. Sweat had plastered his shirt to his back again. The rigs made the whole room feel like summer in hell. What's E-mining solutions? He didn't even look up. Oh, that's just a little entity I set up. Keeps things tidy for taxes, you know? You don't want that whole crypto mess in our personal accounts. $7,000? I said. In one day? He spun his chair toward me, a grin stretching across his face. See? Told you, it's working. Where is it from? The mining pool. And some trades I did. I'm telling you, Han, this is just the beginning. He stood up and grabbed my hands, twirling me in that stifling, humming garage, like we were in some romantic movie scene. We're going to be okay, he whispered into my hair. Better than okay? He took me out to dinner that Friday, a real place, with cloth napkins and a wine list and dessert that wasn't in a plastic wrapper. He ordered steaks. He didn't look at prices. I should have felt relief. I should have thought, finally, our luck is changing. And I did. But underneath the flicker of hope, something else started growing. A small, still voice that asked over and over, how? How is it happening this fast? 5. The neighbors start knocking. The first complaint came from Mrs. Henson next door. She was 70, with hair like spun silver and the gossip radar of a retired detective. I opened the door one afternoon, wiping flour from my hands. I'd been baking cookies with Lily. Hannah, she said, thin lips pressed into a line. We need to talk about that noise. I forced a smile. Noise? It sounds like a hive of angry bees in your garage, she snapped. All day. All night. My husband can't sleep. I heard it then. Really heard it. Through her ears. The constant low roar. I'd gotten used to it. Like people get used to living next to train tracks or under a flight path. But for her, a little old lady whose nights used to be so quiet she could hear crickets sing, it must have felt like an invasion. I'm so sorry, I said. My husband's working on some equipment. I'll talk to him about soundproofing. You do that? She said. Or I'll talk to the Homeowners Association. Homeowners Association. 2 words that could make grown men weep. I relayed the message to Ethan. He shrugged. I'll figure something out. Can you at least turn some of them off at night? I asked. His head snapped up. Turn them off? Hannah, that's thousands of dollars of lost revenue. We're not turning them off. But the neighbors don't pay our bills, he said flatly. Relax, I'll make it work. He did soundproof, eventually. Cheap foam panels stapled to the walls. More fans to disperse heat. A sealed door. It helped. A little. But the rigs also kept multiplying. Soon, it wasn't just neighbors noticing. A city inspector showed up one day while I was home alone. A clipboard in hand and suspicion in his eyes. Ma'am, we've had reports of unusual power usage in this area, he said. My heart stuttered. Power usage? Yes, your address is showing. significantly higher consumption than average. We just need to make sure everything is safe and compliant. I smiled like my life depended on it. Oh, my husband runs a computer business out of the garage. Must be that. He's very careful, though. The inspector tilted his head. Mind if I take a look? Every instinct in me screamed, don't. But what could I say? No, sorry. You can't look in my own garage. Of course, I said, throat dry. I walked him to the side door and knocked twice. Ethan opened, eyes wide when he saw the man behind me. What's up? He asked too casually. City inspector, I said. Power usage. I watched their eyes meet. Something silent passed between them. A calculation. Come on in, Ethan said. He gave the inspector a tour, explaining the rigs, talking about ventilation and breakers, and optimizing the load. He showed him the upgraded wiring he'd had a friend install under the table. The inspector frowned at a few things, jotted notes, and eventually said, You're skating close on capacity. I'd advise spreading the load or upgrading your service. I'll look into that, Ethan replied. When the inspector left, I rounded on my husband. Is it safe? I demanded. All this power, all this heat. Are we going to burn the house down? He rolled his eyes. Babe, I know what I'm doing. Do you, though? I thought. But I didn't say it. Not then. 6. The things he didn't tell me. The first time I caught him lying, it was about something small. I was sorting laundry when I found a crumpled receipt in his jeans pocket. Not unusual. Ethan treated pockets like trash cans. But this receipt wasn't from Home Depot or the grocery store. It was from an electronics warehouse across town. $40,000? 40,000. My breath left my body. I stared at the numbers, the ink smudged but still legible. Date, time. Items listed: GPUs, ASIC miners, specialized rigs with names I didn't recognize. Our entire yearly income spent in one afternoon. I stormed into the garage, receipt in hand. What is this? He barely glanced at it. An investment. $40,000? My voice cracked. With what money, Ethan? We don't have $40,000. He sighed and swiveled toward me. Hannah, we've been over this. The mining is generating cash. I just reinvested a chunk of profits. You saw the deposits. Not this much, I said. Not enough to justify this. Are you taking out loans? Using credit cards? He hesitated. It was quick. A flicker, but I saw it. Just a small line of credit, he said. It's temporary. It's leverage. Everyone does it. You have to spend money to make money. I felt dizzy. A small line of credit is a few $1,000s, not 40. He stood up, frustration simmering under his skin. Look, do you want to stay broke forever? Do you want to spend the rest of your life answering phones at that dental office? Because I'm trying to build us a real future here, and all you ever do is question me. Guilt stabbed me. I hated that he was right about one thing. I was tired of just scraping by, of saying no to school trips and new shoes because we couldn't afford them. I just wish you'd talk to me, I whispered. Before you make big decisions. He softened then, stepping closer, voice low. I'm sorry. You're right. I should have told you. I get excited, that's all. I see the bigger picture and I get carried away. But I swear to you, Hannah, this is going to pay off. You're going to look back and laugh at how worried you were. He kissed my forehead. I promise. I wanted to believe him so badly. So I did. I tucked the receipt into a folder labeled business stuff and told myself I was being supportive, not stupid. Later, I'd realize there were whole worlds he hadn't told me about. Accounts I didn't know existed, deals made in parking lots and back rooms, names he never mentioned, and one secret that started with a burned out warehouse and ended with a body on a concrete floor. 7. The fire on 5th Street. I saw it on the news first. Massive fire at tech storage facility, the headline read. I was making dinner, the TV droning in the background while pasta boiled and Lily colored at the kitchen table. Noah called from the living room. Mom! Look, there's a fire. I wiped my hands on a towel and stepped into the doorway just as the camera panned over licking flames and a column of black smoke. The reporter's voice was somber. Officials suspect an electrical fault, possibly related to unauthorized equipment installed in the facility. One security guard is in critical condition after suffering smoke inhalation and injuries during the evacuation. My heart squeezed. They showed a shot of the building, anonymous, windowless, a concrete box on 5th Street. It looked like any other storage facility, except for the logo. Data Trust, Storage, and Solutions. I'd driven past it 100 times. Tragic, I murmured. That's when I saw him, Ethan, not on screen, in the doorway of the kitchen, white as a sheet. His eyes were glued to the TV, jaw tight. Something in his face made my skin crawl. Ethan? I asked. What's wrong? He swallowed. Nothing, he said. Just, that's near where I buy some of the gear. Probably lost some suppliers. His voice was clipped. Too quick. Too rehearsed. I watched him walk to the fridge, grab a bottle of water, unscrew it with shaking hands. Are you okay? I pressed. He didn't look at me. I'm fine. He was not fine. That night, he didn't eat. He just sat at the table, scrolling his phone, thumb moving in frantic jerks. In bed, he tossed and turned, muttering in his sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The next morning, a new detail emerged. The injured security guard from the Data Trust fire has died from his injuries, the anchor announced. Authorities are now investigating possible arson or criminal negligence. Witnesses report unusual activity in the building prior to the fire, including unauthorized individuals accessing restricted areas. I glanced at Ethan. He turned the TV off. Silence filled the room. Ethan, I whispered, tell me you had nothing to do with that. He stared at the blank screen for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. I didn't start the fire. That's not what I asked. He closed his eyes. I'm going to be late for a meeting, he said, standing abruptly. We'll talk later. He didn't kiss me on the way out. He always kissed me on the way out. Except that day, the man in the driveway. He showed up 3 days after the fire. I was loading groceries into the trunk when a black sedan rolled up slowly, stopping at the edge of our driveway. The window lowered. A man in a suit peered out. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, eyes like flint. "Mrs. Carter?" he asked. Something about the way he said my name made my nerves prickle. "Yes." He flashed a badge. "Detective Morales, City PD. I was hoping to speak with your husband about data trust storage." The world tilted a little. "With Ethan? Why?" "He's listed as one of their contractors. IT work." The detective's gaze flicked past me to the house. "Is he home?" My mouth went dry. "Contractor? My husband worked nights at Data Trust? Since when?" "No, he's at work," I stammered. "At the diner?" "He quit the diner months ago," Morales said quietly. "Didn't you know that?" Ice rushed through my veins. I gripped the edge of the trunk. "No," I whispered. I didn't." He studied me for a moment. "Mrs. Carter, we're following up with everyone who had access to that building. It's routine, but if you hear from your husband, please ask him to call us. We've tried his cell." "He must have lost it," I said weakly. Morales's lips twitched almost sympathetically. "Right. Well, here's my card." He handed it over. I nodded, trying to keep my face calm while my mind screamed. As soon as he drove off, I slammed the trunk closed and sat in the driver's seat, hands shaking on the wheel. He quit the diner months ago. He'd been working at Data Trust. He never told me. Why? 9. The hidden door. That night, Ethan came home late. Not, "Oops, I hit traffic." Late. Middle of the night late. I stayed on the couch just to see what time he'd drag himself in. 2:37 a.m. He froze when he saw me sitting there, in the dim light of the lamp. "Hey," he said, forcing a smile. "You're up." "Where have you been?" I asked. "Working." "At the diner?" He paused. "I had a side job." I stood up slowly, every muscle tight. "At Data Trust?" His face changed. Some mask he'd been wearing, maybe for weeks, maybe for years, cracked. "Who told you that?" he asked quietly. "A detective," I said. "He came by. He asked for you, said you were a contractor there, said you quit the diner months ago." Ethan dropped his gaze, running a hand through his hair. "I can explain," he said. "Then do it," I snapped. "Because right now, I feel like I don't know who I'm married to." He exhaled slowly. "It started small," he said. "They needed someone to help optimize their storage systems. They had racks of servers, half of them idle, wasted potential. I saw an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" "To mine." I blinked. "What?" "They had unused capacity," he said, eyes sparking with remembered excitement. "I set up a few rigs in the back of the warehouse. Nothing major, just piggybacking on their infrastructure. They weren't using the power, Hannah. It was just sitting there." I stared at him. "You stole their electricity." He flinched at the word. "I leveraged it," he insisted. "In exchange, I kept their systems running smoother than ever. Win-win. They never even noticed. They noticed when their building burned down." I hissed. His jaw clenched. "I told you, I didn't start that fire." The wiring in that place was ancient. They were bound to have a problem eventually. Detective Morales would probably love to hear that theory, I snapped. "Ethan, a man died. He looked away. I didn't know anyone was hurt until after. Silence settled between us, heavy and choking. How much? I whispered. Did you make off of them? He hesitated. Hannah. How much? I demanded. His shoulders sagged. About 2 million. The room spun. $2 million? I echoed. In tokens. Not all liquid, he added quickly. It fluctuates. But yeah, roughly. I staggered back, hand pressed to my mouth. 2 million. We were barely getting by. My car had duct tape holding the bumper on. Half our furniture was secondhand. And he had $2 million tied up in digital coins, siphoned from a warehouse he didn't own. You robbed them, I said. It wasn't like that, he insisted. They had no idea. They weren't hurt by it. No one was hurt until someone died in that fire, I shot back. His face twisted. I didn't start the fire. You keep saying that like it makes the rest okay, I said, voice trembling, but it doesn't. None of this is okay. This is theft. This is criminal. He stepped closer, eyes intense. Do you like this house? He asked. Do you like putting food on the table? Do you like the idea of being debt-free in a year instead of 30? That's not fair. No? He pressed. You wanted security. I found a way to give it to you. Now you're mad because the path wasn't squeaky clean? Welcome to reality, Hannah. Nobody gets rich playing by every rule. I stared at him like he was a stranger. Did you ever intend to tell me? I whispered. He looked down at his hands. Eventually, he said, when it was all safe. Safe. Like that word meant anything anymore. Show me, I said suddenly. He blinked. Show you what? What you've been hiding. All of it. He hesitated. Then, slowly, he nodded. Fine, he said. Come with me. We walked to the garage in silence. He flicked on the lights. The rigs hummed, rows of blinking LEDs casting an eerie glow. He crossed to the far wall, where boxes were stacked haphazardly. He moved two aside, revealing something I'd never noticed before. A narrow door, flush with the wall, painted the same color as the drywall, so it blended in. I felt cold. Ethan, I whispered. What is that? He pulled a key from his pocket. My insurance, he said. He unlocked the door and pushed it open. Beyond was a cramped room, maybe 6 feet wide, lit by a single bare bulb. And inside, stacked floor to ceiling, were more machines. Not the scrappy, mismatched rigs I'd seen out in the garage. These were sleek, uniform, professional, industrial. The logo stamped on the side of each unit made my stomach twist. Data, trust, storage, and solutions. I turned to him, horror clawing up my throat. You stole their equipment, I breathed. He lifted his hands defensively. They weren't using half of it, he argued. It was idle inventory. I diverted a few units. How many? I demanded. He hesitated. 20, maybe 30. 30? I choked. Ethan, that's not a few. That's a freaking convoy. He stepped forward, eyes pleading. You don't understand. They had hundreds. The stuff in here, it's nothing to them. But to us, it's everything. This He gestured at the machines. This is our ticket out. Our kids will never have to worry. We can pay off the house, their college, everything. I shook my head, tears burning my eyes. Not if you go to prison. His jaw tightened. I'm not going to prison. You don't know that. Yes, I do, he said. Because you're not going to say anything. And because they have no idea this stuff is missing. The inventory system is a joke. I was careful. You think you were careful, I said. But there's a detective knocking on my door, Ethan. You weren't that careful. He clenched his fists. It'll blow over, he insisted. Fires happen. Insurance pays. They'll move on. And what about the man who died? I whispered. Does his family move on? He flinched. For a moment, I thought I saw something like guilt. Then it was gone. I can't change what happened, he said, but I can change our lives. I can make sure our kids never struggle like we did. At what cost? I asked. He stared at me. This is who I am, Hannah, he said finally. I see angles. Opportunities. I take them. You can go back to your regular life if you want, but I'm not going back to being broke and helpless. Broke and helpless. Like being honest was the same as being helpless. I stood there, surrounded by stolen machines and humming rigs, pulse pounding. I could run to the phone right then, call the detective, tell him everything. But my kids were asleep down the hall. My husband was standing in front of me, eyes wild, desperate. And somewhere inside me, fear and love and greed twisted into one awful knot. I swallowed hard. What do we do now? I asked quietly. His shoulders relaxed, just a fraction. Now, he said, we wait. We keep our mouths shut. We act normal. Normal. Like that was still possible. 10. The fortune and the lie. The money snowballed. He started moving some of the tokens, turning them into cash. New deposits hit our account. 10,000 here, 20,000 there. Suddenly, the overdue bills disappeared. We paid off the credit cards. We refinanced the house. We took the kids to the beach for the first time in their lives, staying in a hotel with a pool. Noah and Lily splashed while Ethan sipped overpriced cocktails and joked about finally living like real people. Guilt sat in my chest like a stone. Every time I slid a card at the grocery store, every time I watched the kids eat ice cream we could actually afford, the thought whispered, this is stolen. You're eating stolen money. You're wearing stolen electricity. You're sleeping under a roof funded by someone else's equipment. I tried to push it down. I told myself, you didn't steal anything. You didn't sneak into that warehouse. You didn't write the code or move the rigs or bypass the breakers. You're just here, benefiting, looking away. That's not as bad, right? Except the law doesn't care how you categorize your complicity. Neither does your conscience. Detective Morales came back twice more. Once to ask follow-up questions. Once to say they were still exploring all possibilities. Ethan played dumb both times. I lied. The words felt like acid on my tongue. Yes, he's been home every night. No, he never mentioned any problems at work. I'm not sure when he quit the diner. A few months ago, maybe. When Morales left, I'd go to the bathroom, close the door, and stare at myself in the mirror. "Stop," I'd whisper. "You're doing this for your family, for your kids. You're protecting them." Even as a voice deep inside answered, "Number, you're protecting him and your new life." 11. The day. Everything cracked. It happened on a Tuesday. It's always Tuesdays, have you noticed? Big news, bad news, life-ending phone calls. They love Tuesdays. I was at work when the receptionist's phone rang. "Dental Care Associates, this is Hannah. How can I help you?" "Mrs. Carter?" a familiar voice asked. My stomach dropped. "Detective Morales?" "Are you somewhere private?" he asked. My chest tightened. No, I'm at work." "Can you step away for a moment?" he said. "It's important." I asked Carla to cover the desk and slipped into the tiny break room, the one that smelled like burned coffee and microwaved soup. I pressed the phone to my ear. "What is it?" I asked. "We've made progress in the data trust case," he said. "We'd like you and your husband to come down to the station this afternoon." Cold washed over me. "Why?" "We just have some questions. It's better to do this in person." I swallowed. Do we need a lawyer?" He paused. "I can't advise you on that, Mrs. Carter. But if I were in your position," he trailed off. "Let's just say, I'd take this very seriously." After I hung up, I stood there, shaking. This was it, the point of no return. That night, I told Ethan. He didn't flinch. "They don't have anything," he said. "Then why do they want us both there?" I asked. "Why did he sound like this is about to get ugly?" He paced the kitchen, jaw working. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay. We go in, we answer basic questions. We don't volunteer anything. We say, 'I did freelance work, I don't remember details.' It was all above board. If they push, we ask for a lawyer. Do not, under any circumstances, admit to knowing anything about those units in the garage." I stared at him. "So we lie." He looked at me, eyes cold. "We protect ourselves." There it was, said out loud. I wish I could tell you that I grew a backbone in that moment, that I threw a glass at the wall, grabbed the kids, and ran to the police with a confession. I didn't. I was so scared my bones felt hollow. Scared for him. Scared for me. Scared for Noah and Lily, who were upstairs fighting over a tablet, oblivious to the fact that their parents were about to walk into a police station and potentially never come back out together. So I nodded. "Okay," I whispered. We walked into the station at 3:14 p.m. At 4:02 p.m., they separated us. At 4:37 p.m., Morales laid photos on the table in front of me. "This is your garage, correct?" My breath hitched. There, in glossy color, were the rigs, the shelves, the humming machines, and the hidden door. Open, revealing data trust units stacked inside. "How did you—" I whispered. "Search warrant," he said. "Executed at noon. Your husband wasn't home. You weren't either." We let ourselves in. He flipped over another photo. "A lot of this equipment is cataloged as missing from data trust inventory. Do you recognize it?" My mouth was dry. I don't know what any of that is," I stammered. He studied my face. "Mrs. Carter," he said quietly, "you told me the first time we met that you didn't know your husband had quit the diner. You didn't know he was working for a data trust. You didn't know about the LLC. You seemed genuinely surprised. I believed you. I was surprised, I whispered. But things changed, he said. Your account started receiving large transfers from e-mining solutions. You started paying off debts. You went on vacation. Your kids' college funds suddenly got very healthy. I have bank records for all of it. My vision blurred. He leaned forward. I'm going to be honest with you, Hannah. Your husband is in a lot of trouble. Theft, fraud, possibly contributing to the conditions that led to the fire. He's not walking out of here today. A sound strangled in my throat. But you? Morales continued. You have a choice. I looked up, blinking away tears. A choice? I repeated. He nodded. If you continue to lie for him, you become part of this, as guilty as he is. Accessory? Conspiracy? You'll both be charged. Your children will lose both parents. The room spun. If, however, you tell us the truth, everything you know, we may be able to treat you as a cooperating witness instead of a suspect. You'll still face consequences. You benefited from stolen assets. You lied to investigators. But it won't be the same as if you double down on his story. I gripped the edge of the table. He's my husband, I whispered. And those are your children, Morales said gently. They need at least one parent on the outside. The words sliced through me. I thought of Noah's gap-toothed grin, Lily's messy braids, their shoes by the door, their toothbrushes by the sink. If we both went down, who would take them? I squeezed my eyes shut. I didn't know at first, I whispered. I swear, I thought it was just mining. Loud, annoying mining. When the money started coming in, I asked questions, but he always had explanations, tricks, charts on his laptop. It wasn't until the fire that The dam broke. Words spilled out. About data trust, about the hidden door, about the late nights and the fear and the way he twisted everything into, we're doing this for the family. Morales listened. He didn't interrupt, didn't nod, didn't show triumph. He just wrote. When I was done, my face was wet, my voice hoarse. So, what happens now? I asked. He closed his notebook. Now, he said, we book your husband. And we talk to the DA about you. I swallowed. You said I'd still face consequences. He nodded. You knew about stolen property in your home and didn't report it. You accepted funds from an illegal operation. You lied to law enforcement. No one's going to pretend you're a saint in this, Hannah. I nodded, numb. But you also came forward, he added. You cooperated. The DA likes cooperation, especially when we're talking about a case with millions in damages and a dead man. Will I go to prison? I asked in a small voice. He hesitated. That depends, he said, on your lawyer. On the DA, on the judge, on whether we can prove you were more scared wife than active partner. Be prepared for the possibility. He stood. In the meantime, we're going to arrest you as well. You'll be processed and arraigned. We'll push for bail. The room closed in. Arrest, I repeated dumbly. He looked not cruel, not gloating, just tired. I'm sorry, he said. This is the part of my job I hate. They took my fingerprints. They took my mugshot. Cold metal closed around my wrists. I thought of Ethan in some other room shouting that he didn't start the fire, that this was all a misunderstanding. I thought of our garage, Empty now. Machine seized, humming, silenced. I thought of the man at Data Trust who'd died. His family probably sitting in some living room like mine, staring at a photo on a mantle and asking why. I thought of my kids. And for the first time since this started, I didn't feel like a victim of Ethan's choices. I felt like an accomplice. The price of looking away. The headlines were brutal. Couple arrested in crypto mining theft ring. Miner's wife claimed she didn't know about stolen millions. Garage rigs linked to deadly warehouse fire. My picture, eyes red, hair messy, circulated with Ethan's. He looked defiant in his mugshot. I looked broken. Our names became hashtags. People I hadn't spoken to in years sent messages. Some asked if it was true. Some said they were praying for us. A few told me I deserved everything I got. The kids went to my sister, at least temporarily. CPS stepped in. Courts were involved. Judges weighed our histories, our families, our risk factors. Ethan was denied bail. The weight of the charges, grand theft, fraud, some preliminary count related to endangering the warehouse, made judges skittish. My lawyer fought hard. Hannah is not the mastermind here, she argued. She's the spouse of a man who groomed her into going along with his scheme. She cooperated fully. She has no prior record. She has 2 minor children. I was granted bail. The amount was more than my life used to be worth, back when numbers were small and manageable. But my parents scraped savings. My sister pitched in, and a bondsman did the rest. Walking out of jail, breathing free air, felt wrong, like I'd snuck out of a funeral halfway through. I stayed with my sister in her cramped house, sleeping on the couch, listening to my kids whisper about Mommy's big mistake in the room next door. Noah wouldn't look at me for the first 2 days. Lily asked if Daddy was in timeout. How long does it last? She asked. I didn't have an answer. The DA offered me a deal. Testify against your husband, my lawyer said bluntly. You corroborate the paper trail. You confirm he stole equipment, that he bypassed power, that he knew about safety issues at the warehouse. In exchange, they'll knock your charges down to accessory, maybe probation, worst case, a short sentence, best case, no prison. And if I don't testify, I asked. She looked me dead in the eye. You're looking at years. They want someone held accountable. They will not hesitate to make you both an example. Crypto thieves who caused a death. My stomach twisted. He's the father of my children, I whispered. She nodded. And he put them in danger every single day. He ran that operation out of your garage, she said quietly. He's the one who risked leaving them with no parents. Not you. I thought of all the times I'd almost said something and didn't. All the nights I'd lain awake, listening to the hum through the wall, telling myself it was fine, we were fine, everything was fine, wanting to believe him more than I wanted to look at the truth. He didn't force me to lie, I said. I chose that. She nodded. And now you choose again, she replied. This time, maybe you choose differently. In the end, I agreed. I sat in a courtroom, hands shaking in my lap, and I told the truth. All of it. How he'd started a data trust, how he'd snuck units out, how he'd built that hidden room, how he'd dismissed safety concerns, how he'd convinced me we were just leveraging wasted resources, and that no one was getting hurt. How I'd found out, stayed silent, spent the money. Ethan stared at me from the defendant's table, eyes blazing. He didn't speak, but I could hear him anyway. Traitor! The defense tried to paint me as the real mastermind. She handled the finances, they argued. She saw the deposits. She managed the household. She encouraged expansion. It was almost laughable. If being willfully blind and occasionally whining about electric bills makes you a mastermind, then half the wives in America are criminal geniuses. The jury didn't buy it. They saw Ethan's emails where he bragged to a friend about bleeding the warehouse dry. They saw security footage of him wheeling out units, face half covered, eyes darting. They heard testimony from a former co-worker who said he'd warned Ethan about overloaded circuits, who claimed Ethan had laughed and said, "If something sparks, insurance will clean up the mess." They saw the fire investigators' report, which didn't prove Ethan started the blaze, but showed that unauthorized equipment had overloaded an already fragile system. It was enough. Not for murder, but for everything else. The verdict came back guilty on multiple counts. Years? He got years. They gave me a smaller sentence, accessory, failure to report. Mostly suspended, plus probation, mandatory community service, a record that would follow me forever. People online said I got off easy. Maybe they're right. It doesn't feel easy. It feels like carrying a boulder everywhere I go. Not just the shame, the knowledge that I could have stopped it sooner. That if I'd listened to that whisper in my gut, if I'd picked up a phone, a man might still be alive. My kids might still have both parents tucking them in at night. I can say Ethan's choices got us here 100 times. It doesn't erase the part where I chose to look away. 13. The bloody cost of digital gold. People like to talk about crypto as if it's clean. Digital, weightless, numbers on a screen. They forget that behind every coin is something physical. Machines, fans, electric lines, sweat. In our case, blood. I saw the widow of the security guard once in the courtroom hallway. She was younger than I expected, pretty, with dark hair pinned back, and a little boy clinging to her skirt. He couldn't have been more than 4. He was holding a toy truck, pushing it along the floor absent-mindedly. She caught me staring, and our eyes met. For a second, the world narrowed down to just the two of us. One woman who'd lost her husband in a fire he never knew was coming. One woman who'd lost hers to handcuffs and orange jumpsuits because he'd lit the match on their lives. I opened my mouth to say what? I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't bring anyone back. Sorry doesn't pay mortgages or college or therapy bills. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that a man who was just doing his job walked into a night shift and didn't walk out, partially because my husband wanted free electricity. My lips trembled. She looked away, rightly so. I didn't approach her. Cowardice again, I guess. Later, I would send a letter through the DA's office. I poured everything into that letter. My regret, my acknowledgement, my refusal to make excuses. I don't know if she ever read it. I don't blame her if she tore it up. 14. Love, greed, and the garage. Sometimes I sit and try to rewind, to find the precise moment when everything crossed from risky to ruined. Was it when Ethan brought home the first extra rig? when our electric bill doubled, when he signed the first data trust contract, or smuggled out the first machine? Was it when I found that $40,000 receipt and chose to file it instead of fight? When I heard about the fire and saw him go white and didn't call Morales right then? It's comforting to think there was one fork in the road, one bad choice. But the truth is uglier. It was 1,000 small choices, tiny little accommodations, a discomfort I swallowed instead of speaking, a question I softened, a half truth I told, a deposit I didn't examine too closely. Every time I picked comfort over confrontation, the story took another step toward this ending. I loved him. That's the worst part. I didn't stand by him because I worshipped money. I stood by him because I remembered the guy fixing the sound system laughing about plugging it in, the guy who held my hand through Noah's birth, the guy who worked double shifts when Lily was in the hospital with pneumonia, who slept in the chair by her bed. I loved that man. And when he started changing, I told myself it was stress. It was ambition. It was for us. I told myself he wasn't bad, just desperate, talented, misunderstood. I told myself a lot of things, like good men who love their kids don't become criminals. Husbands who kiss their wives goodnight don't walk into warehouses and gut them from the inside. Fathers who build sandcastles with their children don't set in motion events that kill other fathers. But they do. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they're both. Loving and selfish, gentle and ruthless, comforting and cruel. Sometimes they look you in the eyes and say, "Trust me," while standing on a mountain of lies. And you believe them, because the alternative hurts too much. 15. The Miner's Wife. I've been out on probation long enough now that the internet has moved on. New scandals, new villains, new meme-able disasters. Sometimes, though, a random message shows up. Are you that miner's wife from the news? What's it like knowing your husband killed someone for Bitcoin? Would you do it again if you knew you'd get away with it? I delete most of them. Block some. I don't answer the "would you do it again" question. Because the truth is, I wouldn't. Not this. Not the lying, the hiding, the fire, the court, the kids visiting their father behind glass. But if I'm brutally honest with myself, there's still a part of me that understands how we got seduced. When you've lived most of your life one car breakdown away from disaster, and someone you love says, "I found a shortcut," it's hard not to be tempted, especially when the shortcut starts working, especially when your kids get new shoes and your car doesn't decline at the pharmacy. That's the hook in all these stories, isn't it? The crypto scams, the Ponzi schemes, the "just route it through this account, it's harmless" plans. They don't target the cartoon villains twirling mustaches. They target the scared, the hopeful, the math illiterate. They target people like me, people who are tired, people who want out, people who think crime looks like ski masks and alleyways, not like laptops and garages. People who don't realize that looking away is its own crime. I visit Ethan sometimes, not often, not as much as he wants. He wears the jumpsuit. He still sweats, even in air conditioning. Prison food doesn't agree with him. He says he's focusing on appeals. He says he's reading up on financial law. The last time I went, he leaned over the table, eyes bright, and said, "If I'd routed things a little differently." "Stop," I said. He blinked. "We're done with hypotheticals," I told him. "We're done with, if only I'd been smarter." "You were smart. That's the problem. You used it like a weapon." He sagged back in his chair. "You turned on me," he said quietly. "I told the truth," I replied. "Same thing," he muttered. "No," I said, "not anymore." He stared at his hands. "Do the kids hate me?" he asked. "No," I said. "Not yet," I didn't add. "They're confused. They're hurt. They miss you. They also hate that they can't have friends over, because everyone's parents have an opinion about us." He flinched. "Tell them I love them," he whispered. "I do," I said. "I tell them every time." He looked up. "Do you still love me?" The question hung between us, heavy and awkward. Did I? Did I love the boy with the too tight dress shirt and the easy laugh? Yes. Did I love the man who built a stealth mining operation on stolen machines, lied to my face, and shrugged off a stranger's death as collateral damage? Number. "I care about you," I said finally. "You're the father of my children." "But you're done being my wife," he said flatly. "I stopped being your wife," I said, "the day you decided your dream was worth more than a man's life." He looked away. We sat in silence until the guard called time. 16. What I tell my children. Noah is 13 now. Lily is 10. They're old enough to Google, to read, to piece things together. I decided early on that if I didn't tell them, the internet would, or kids at school, or overheard adult conversations. So I sat them down at my sister's kitchen table one night, hands wrapped around a mug of cooling tea. "I need to talk to you about Dad," I said. They looked up, wary. Is he okay?" Noah asked. "He's okay," I said. "He's healthy. But he did some things that were very wrong, illegal, and I helped him by not stopping it." Lily's eyes widened. "Like stealing?" she whispered. "Yes," I said. "He stole equipment and electricity to make money. A lot of money. And there was a fire where someone got hurt very badly. He didn't start the fire, but the things he did made it easier for something to go wrong." "Is that why he's in jail?" Noah asked. "Yes." They were quiet for a while. "Did you steal too?" Lily asked. I took a breath. "Yes," I said softly. "I stole by spending money I knew wasn't really ours. I lied to the police to keep Dad safe. That's why I went to jail for a little while too." Noah frowned. "But you're not bad." I swallowed. "Good people can make bad choices," I said. "Sometimes they think they're doing it for the right reasons, to help their family, to make life better. But that doesn't change the harm they cause." Lily's lower lip trembled. "Are we bad?" she whispered. I reached for her hand. "No," I said firmly. "You are not responsible for what your parents did. You are allowed to be sad. You are allowed to be angry. You are allowed to love Dad and also hate what he did. All those feelings can be true at once." Noah stared at the table. "Will people always look at us like we're those kids?" he asked. "Some might," I admitted, "but you get to decide who you are. You can learn from our mistakes. You can make different choices. Lily sniffled. Will Dad ever come home? Yes, I said. One day. But by then, you'll be older. You'll have your own lives, and you'll get to decide how much space he has in them. They digested that in silence. Later, I heard Noah telling his sister in the dark of their room, just because Dad did something dumb doesn't mean we're doomed. We can be better. I closed my eyes and pressed a hand to my mouth, choking on a sob. He shouldn't have to be that wise that young. But here we are. 17. The deadly cost of just one shortcut. Sometimes people ask me what I'd say to someone whose partner is getting into too good to be true schemes. Not just crypto, insurance scams, tax fraud, insider trading, victimless crimes. They always say the same things our friends said to us when rumors first swirled. Well, if it works, you'll be set for life. Everybody cheats a little. That's how the game is played. Just don't get caught. If you're listening to someone you love pitch you a shortcut and your stomach knots, listen to your stomach. If you find yourself saying, I don't understand exactly how it works, but they say it's fine, it's probably not fine. If the life they're promising sounds like a movie, and the timeline sounds like a sprint instead of a marathon, run. Maybe not from them, not immediately, but from the scheme, from the garage humming like a hive, from the trust me paired with don't ask too many questions. I wish someone had shaken me, grabbed my shoulders, said, Hannah, look at this. Really look. You're not stupid. You see the cracks? Stop pretending you don't. But nobody did. Or maybe they tried, and I brushed them off, too drunk on relief that bills were getting paid. Either way, the result is the same. My husband is behind bars. A man is dead. My kids carry a last name that makes teachers raise eyebrows. And I'm sitting here telling strangers on the internet how mining more than crypto ruined our lives. 18. Epilogue. What's left after the fall? The garage is empty now. They seized everything. Shelves, machines, even the foam panels he'd stapled to the walls. The only sign anything ever happened there are faint outlines on the floor where racks once stood, and a patch on the wall where the hidden door used to be. They sealed it up after taking evidence. Fresh drywall, but the paint doesn't quite match. Sometimes I stand there in that too quiet space and listen for a hum that's gone. I half expect to hear it in my dreams. My probation officer says I have good prospects for rehabilitation. I go to therapy. I go to court-mandated ethics classes. I speak to high school students about white-collar crime, which is a fancy phrase for ways desperate people convince themselves theft is fine. I tell them about shortcuts and silence and how fast a life can flip. I don't tell them the dollar amounts. Teenagers hear 2 million and their eyes light up, even if the story ends in prison. Instead, I tell them about Mrs. Henson, my neighbor, who now has to sleep with a sound machine because silence reminds her of the nights before the hum. I tell them about a widow with a little boy and a toy truck. I tell them about my son, who flinches when someone jokes about cheating the system. I tell them about my daughter, who asked if stealing thoughts counts as stealing because she wants to make sure she never does anything wrong. I tell them about how easy it is to go from, I don't know anything, to, I knew enough, and I didn't stop it. And I tell them about love because I did love Ethan. I probably always will in some complicated, bruised way. But love doesn't cancel out consequences. It doesn't turn stolen into earned. It doesn't resurrect anyone. What it can do, if you let it, is make you fight harder to be honest next time, to choose discomfort over complicity, to listen when the person you love starts sounding less like your partner and more like a salesman. People online still argue about Ethan. Some call him a genius brought down by the system. Some call him greedy scum who got what he deserved. Very few talk about the families, his, the guards, ours. We're not headlines. We're just picking up pieces. My name is Hannah. I was married to a miner who mined more than crypto. He mined trust. He mined shortcuts. He mined every last bit of my ability to pretend that looking away is harmless. And in the end, the cost of that fortune wasn't just measured in dollars. It was measured in years, in grief, in the silence of an empty garage where the only thing humming now is the memory of everything we lost.